Today's guest is someone whose story shines a light on a hidden danger in modern medicine and the power of personal transformation. After experiencing severe neurological symptoms from a commonly prescribed antibiotic, metronidazole, also known as Flagyl, she was left searching for answers in a system that often overlooked or dismissed her condition. What followed was a journey of deep healing, self advocacy, and radical reinvention. Now a certified health coach, she helps others reclaim their well being and trust their bodies after medical trauma. Please welcome Taylor Downs, a powerful voice in the growing conversation around metronidazole, Flagyl, toxicity, and holistic recovery. Hi, Taylor, and welcome to Out of the Blue, the podcast.
Hi, how are you?
And welcome to Out of the Blue.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Okay, so anyway, we basically like to start off with, tell us, what really is your biggest out of the blue experience with Flagyl toxicity? I would imagine that would be it. So how did it happen? Tell us all about it. We don't we're totally in need of curious to know everything about it. I'm sure our listeners are too.
Yeah, of course. Where to begin? I think the best place to start is when I started having my symptoms. So back in the summer of 2022, specifically July and August, I had an infection that was, standard. I had had it before. It wasn't a big deal. It was a bladder infection. And my entire life I had taken antibiotics, had no issues, if anything, some stomach upset or something. But other than that, it was pretty standard. So went into my doctor, got the antibiotics, and unfortunately, these were like the other antibiotics. This was not Flagyl yet at this point. Nothing was really working for some reason to clear this infection. So I did about 7 or 8 rounds of antibiotics over the course of 2.5 months before they found another issue that needed Flagyl. So I had taken Macrobid, Bactrim, ciprofloxacin, which is another really crazy antibiotic that a lot of people have horrible symptoms from. So I had taken all of these, and then ultimately I was given Flagyl. I was told to take a 7-day course, so it would have been 2 days or 2 times a day for 7 days, so 14 pills total. I ended up taking 3 in total before I had to drive myself to the ER. Um, Ultimately, my symptoms were, I mean, what the podcast is out of the blue. I had never had these symptoms before. It was terrifying. It was anywhere from blurry vision to neuropathy in my arms and my hands, my legs. I just didn't feel real, is the best way to explain it. I felt like I was completely dissociated and I was like seeing myself from an outside perspective. I remember looking down at my arms and not recognizing my own body.
Wow.
Yeah, it was absolutely terrifying. And I was just like working from home that day, like casual. I had taken the morning dose, and then a couple hours later is when it had hit me. So yeah, and I'm a type 1 diabetic as well, and I think, my entire life I've pretty much always said if I had symptoms, it was probably from my blood sugars was off or something.
Right, right.
So for one of the first times in my life, I had to completely look to something else as the problem, and that was really hard for someone that's been so focused on one illness their entire life. So went to the ER, told them what had happened. And I was very lucky that none of them denied that it was the Flagyl.
Really.
Yeah, a lot of people have the experience of doctors saying that's not the case. They love to say it's anxiety. And in my
Wow.
case, they told me you need to take a Benadryl, let it get out of your system. It absolutely is the Flagyl. So I was very fortunate in that. And I immediately did stop it, went home, and I was fine for the night. But then that was just the beginning, truthfully.
No way. You mean you're telling me these effects were long lasting? I mean, they didn't go away when you stopped it.
No, I still have them 2.5 years later.
Oh my, I'm sorry. That's a head spinner, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and all from an antibiotic or something being used to kill an infection.
Yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, I've had Bactrim before, I've had
Uh,
that, and I've had other antibiotics. I even, when I had come home from the hospital, I had to even have um, I had antibiotic that I had to put in a port.
Mm,
It was strong, but I
mm,
never got any symptoms like that. I think it was still more or less like Bactrim. It wasn't pretty. It was innocuous in a way.
yeah.
But this sounds like staggeringly, um, wow. I mean, and no, Thomas tells more.
Yeah. And yeah, Bactrim, I know like the symptom I had some symptoms on Bactrim as well, and they're all horrible, but this was something that I never in a million years thought could happen with an antibiotic. I was
Right.
completely caught off guard, and just in total disbelief. I didn't know what I thought, to be honest, but I was very lucky in the fact that I feel like every time I've gone to the ER, I've presented pretty normal. I'm like, hi, I'm having these symptoms. Even in that moment, I was calm, I was collected. I think I've just having chronic illness my entire life has trained me to be pretty calm.
I get that.
Yeah, and it took a long time to see me, but in that time that I was sitting there, blurry vision going in and out as I'm sitting there, I'm Googling what was going on. I'm like, what could happen? How does this happen? And I'm so grateful that I found the Flagyl Toxicity support group on Facebook.
Wow.
Yeah, there are thousands of people in there. And ultimately, I immediately joined it. I can't remember if I was approved right away or if it took a minute, but I was already going down the rabbit hole at this point. And it was, I mean, sure enough, it confirmed everything for me. There are a lot of theories out there about what exactly happens after you take it and why it causes these symptoms. But ultimately, for me, it damaged my nervous system, is what it did.
Yeah, it sounds like it would. That's exactly what's affecting your nervous system. All those blurry vision and stuff like that.
Yep.
Those are terrifying things. I mean,
Oh, it affects people differently. Have you learned through the community in what ways?
Yeah, so for some people, a lot of people are primarily everybody seems to have digestive issues. That seems like right off the bat, it's like you have some diarrhea or constipation, something is off.
that's
And a
that's
lot of
typical. That's kind of typical for
yes,
antibiotics,
yes,
actually, right?
exactly.
But
Yeah.
the
So
other
people think
stuff,
it's normal.
yeah.
Yeah. They're like, oh, this is totally fine until all of a sudden they're having extreme panic like symptoms. And it's just doom and gloom. It's like your heart is racing, insomnia, just like you have like sudden like food intolerances, which I experienced. And so a lot of people, they can seem to ones a lot of people had the experience of they had really really bad symptoms while on it, and then a couple days off of it they seem to have gotten better. So it's a mystery as to why some people you know have these long-term effects and others have the short-term effects. But there's the other theory of that it causes B1 or thiamine deficiency, which if you look at like the symptoms of it, it's very, very similar. And I actually went down that path initially. I did not find out about the nervous system damage until months later, after I was just reading and reading and reading and trying to figure out what was going on. Especially with the peripheral neuropathy, that was where I was like, this just doesn't make sense. Like, this can't just be from a vitamin deficiency, right? Um, but yeah, a lot of people they decide to take B1. I did do that. Unfortunately, the support group, they're amazing. They talk you through everything. They tell you, hey, you're probably going to have an adverse reaction to the B1 as well,
Whoa,
because basically your body's just absolutely depleted of it now. So you're having like a paradoxical reaction, is what it's called.
right.
So there was a lot of, guessing, for a lot of people. I mean, posting constantly, and it's so difficult because you're basically reading your trauma over and over and over again in someone else's experience, which for people like me who already have a history of CPTSD, it's kind of a trauma response to just continuously talk and talk and talk and talk about it or read about it. So I knew that I needed to just take some time and figure out what was going on, stop reading and trying to solve people's problems. um, and yeah, I took a break from the support group for a little bit just to kind of work with my doctor, my functional medicine doctor, who I am so grateful for, and just try to figure out how are we going to tackle this, because this is not anything I've ever had to deal with in my entire life.
Wow. So the support group, there's so many people, and I'm almost think like I'm echoing your question, Jackie. How many, what range of other symptoms? Because I think one of the best things we can do with this is put that out there so somebody's experiencing that. So what would you say the range of, give us some idea of all the different things you've heard.
It's funny because when I had first joined the group, symptoms that I didn't even realize I was having were from that. And there's actually a video that I had watched that had created by the Facebook creator. Her name was Erin Jensen. She's absolutely amazing. She created all these YouTube videos, and I was just screenshotting every single slide that had all the symptoms. And I think I counted, I had 24 symptoms.
Whoa.
And there are many. So one of the biggest ones is dysautonomia, which for those that don't know what that is, it's essentially dysregulated autonomic nervous system. So it's essentially your autonomic nervous system is having all of these different reactions to things. It's an overdrive. One of those things can be like sensitivity to lights and to sounds. It can also be sensitivity to touch, mood swings, headaches, migraines. It can be like even eye issues. So it's very like all encompassing of a lot of different issues. And in and of that is also the digestive issues. So everyone pretty much had the digestive issues, but then there was people that were popping in with the neuropathy. Some people had lost like movement in one side of their face, so almost like stroke-like symptoms.
Whoa.
Yeah, and there were people that couldn't talk. There were people that couldn't walk. Those were the extreme ones, of course, but absolutely terrifying nonetheless. Like, I mean, just completely terrifying. And a lot of other people had dizziness, the food intolerances, as I mentioned. There was also, for me, I had a very, it was just like extreme fatigue to the point that I couldn't even do basic things without needing to go sit down. But then it was almost like my body couldn't relax. So I had no way of relaxing really, even though my body was needing it. Sleep would cause me to have extreme nightmares, or I would wake up with a heart racing and I would be out of breath, gasping for air. Um, yeah, there's so many symptoms I can't even
Well,
tell you.
that's very concerning, of course. And I really think a bit. I mean, I know of people who on Facebook, for example, who come on and talk about how some symptoms like that, and I bet you, I wonder, if they're being exposed to it, if they have been offered that kind of antibiotic.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
wonder how many people are out there that are experiencing this and just think it's them. Like
Yeah.
I'm having bad dreams and all
Hmm.
the symptoms you say you could probably write off at some
Yeah.
other things. But
Yeah.
if you start noticing all these other people getting those exact symptoms from this medicine, I mean that will be like a bell ringing for a lot of people. Maybe I think it could take a weight off them in a way, be something to relieve their concern about something greater going on.
Yeah.
So it's probably
Absolutely.
really good to get this out there for that reason. But
Hmm.
what would you say we should do about what can be done? Do you think? I mean, as far as of course, raising awareness. What is the group consensus? What are they all saying should be done? I mean, is the medical community being counseled about this? Are they being someone?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest overall consensus in the group is that, first and foremost, informed consent when it comes to being given medication. Um, None of us, not a single person in that group, was told of the severe side effects of what can happen. And Flagyl is just like Cipro, another antibiotic, has a black box warning on it, which indicates that there's also just severe side effects along with it. And they always like to pass it off by saying they're rare. They're obviously not that rare. So the informed consent part is what so many of us wish that we would have just had, and how important that is for doctors to be completely transparent about what you are putting into your body. Because if you don't know, you can't give your informed consent. You can't give your consent
right,
ultimately.
exactly. I mean, I know that, I went through myself a lot of medical conditions through getting leukemia. And I remember Cipro being on the table at one point because one of the biggest dangers when you're in dealing with leukemia, you have very little to no immune system after you get a transplant. So they had me on all kinds of antibiotics. So I definitely went through some of that with even the the strong stuff they gave me. I don't know if I ever got Cipro. I think it was on the table, but I think I seem to recall my oncologist saying, "I don't think I want you to do that." He knew about that black box warning. I can't imagine why a doctor wouldn't bring that to his patient's attention.
I don't know. It's so unfortunate too because I have many friends that are given it. It's predominantly given for women in cases of BV, which is extremely common, but there's so many other different antibiotics that can be given that don't have that particular black box warning on it. And
Exactly. I mean,
it's their first line of defense for some reason.
what is that? I mean, that's incredible. You have
Yeah.
to want, I mean, of course, what comes to my mind is it's a money thing. Maybe, I hope not. I mean, we don't want
You
to say
hope,
that.
yeah.
We don't want to think that it's, doctors being told to being pushed in a way to push it.
Yeah.
We don't want to think that. We
Mhm.
want to give them the benefit of the doubt in that regard. And I mean,
Yeah.
I've known plenty
Do
of,
have some inside scoop though from another podcaster that he used to work in pharmacy as a pharmacist, and he said that in the past there was a lot of conversation between pharmacists to, really talk about the ethics of what they're giving people and like what products are good and what products are less good and bad. Like there was just more of a discussion. And he said now it's really, really hard to to have a back and forth. Um, because there's yeah, there for whatever reason, like dialogue is not encouraged. It's very like tyrannical
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
yeah,
believe it.
oh boy. So we got a definite hard road to go. I mean, we have to raise awareness and hopefully the people out there who are calling the shots about these things will have a awakening about it and maybe realize that people's lives are in their hands, and I mean, it's hard to imagine that people dealing out medicines to help people wouldn't have that ethical base. But I mean, then again, just because it's hard to imagine doesn't mean it's not true. So,
Yeah, it's frustrating because I know a lot of doctors, they're very by the book, they're going to believe whatever they've read in school and I don't blame them for that necessarily. That's what they were taught. But I think I don't know if it's necessarily advancements or if it's just catching up to what we're dealing with now in society. There has to be a reason why this is happening so often to people and so severely. But also just stop treating patients like they're just a number. Go by each individual, look at their exact case, look at their health history. For me, as a type 1 diabetic, there is no way I should have been given an antibiotic that could cause nerve damage. Absolutely none. And I was given two of them, and that's where it's so frustrating, where it's like these doctors have known me for years and they just threw it at me. And of course I trusted them. Why wouldn't I?
right. Oh man. And
Yeah.
that's a moral issue, isn't it? It really
hmm
is.
So you're dealing with the symptoms of this every day.
Every day. Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot better. I would be lying if I said it wasn't better. And I had some days, even like shortly afterward, that were fine, but it's so greatly impacted by my blood sugars, for example, which I don't have control the way that a non diabetic does. And so it's been really, really difficult healing and finding ways of not just absolutely losing my mind from trying to chase these symptoms, and not really knowing what's going on. Is it blood sugars? Is it this? Is it that? It's been a battle for 2.5 years for sure.
Yeah, so that's a long time of your life to have to be dealing with something like that. I mean,
Yeah,
even I mean, I don't even a day isn't really something you should have to deal with, but to
yeah,
have it that long length of a time, it's
hmm
really it's basically beyond. Yeah, it's an issue. It's something that
yeah.
has to be faced and dealt with, and I think you guys in that group are doing a really good thing. Um, what kind of inspirational things you think came out of that? You yourself, I noticed in some of your story where you found yourself wanting to get involved with healthcare yourself. That's
Yes.
kind of an out of the blue thing in my book. It's kind of like this thing happens to you. It's traumatic, and then somehow you found a way forward, and that way forward is you now doing. Tell us what you're doing.
Yeah, so I actually decided a year after getting this, all these symptoms, taking Flagyl, I decided to get my health coaching certification. It was a year-long program through the Integrative Nutrition Institute, and I've it was extremely eye-opening and extremely important for me, I think, to do that because I felt like my health was just failing and I felt completely helpless. So to then take charge, take control again and do something with it to where I can help people going through what I'm going through, but also other things that I can help them with. I had to look at that as the silver lining because if I didn't, I would have just been
The silver
drowning.
lining, that's the thing. So tell us what's the name of that thing? Your course, you repeat it again. I want to
Yeah,
remember
it's
that.
the Institute of Integrative Nutrition.
And you got you learned about what are you now?
Yeah, I'm a certified health coach. So I don't have any, I can't I can't diagnose, I can't treat technically, but I like to describe myself as kind of like your best friend in health. I can be there alongside you, helping you navigate your health journey, holding you accountable. A lot of people need that. I know I personally need that. And yeah, I've learned a lot about gut health and hormone health, a lot of different things. So
So when you have, say, I was one of your clients, and what would you tell me? Like dietary suggestions? Tell me what you would tell a typical client.
health coaches, like, we are really designed to help you empower yourself. So it sounds kind of funny. It's like, why do I have to have somebody help me empower myself? But I think a lot of people, like I was, are drowning in their health symptoms and they don't know where to start. So something that I can do is I ask questions that can really help you get on a path of figuring out what works for you, what are the silver linings again in your life right now that you can lean on. What are things that fill you with joy? What are things that give you movement in your day-to-day life? What are things that bring you happiness, like in your relationships, your jobs? I hope you kind of look at the big picture, which is ultimately the circle that we call it.
That's pretty
Of
holistic. Yeah,
yeah, yes, yeah. And I think that's another part of it too, is I have this unique perspective of being somebody that's been harmed by conventional medicine, but I'm also type 1 diabetic and I have to take conventional medicine.
right, right.
So I'm one of those people that have a unique perspective. I've been through a lot. A lot of people that are health coaches have been through this themselves. And we're just ultimately looking to be there for you and to help you as we all wanted ourselves in our journey.
Yeah, I mean that's good for anybody, right, Jackie? I think that's something
Yeah.
everybody could use that. And
Yeah.
Jackie's been my counselor.
Oh, yeah.
She actually actually got me drinking kombucha when I was
Oh.
and an interesting story about that. I was actually in the hospital dealing with leukemia, and I had a case of it that I had got on Amazon. It was in my room, and the doctor came in and he sees the kombucha and he goes, "Oh, good, good, you're drinking that." And I said, "Why?" I said I make my family drink 4 ounces a day each. Because I said, why? What's good about it? He says, it's good for your gut health. He says, the problem with Western diet, a lot of it, is that it creates little micro perforations in your intestines. And that kombucha helps heal them.
Yeah.
Help do this. So, and all it is really is a fermented black tea,
Yeah.
right? I mean, but it's a natural thing, all natural. And I've been drinking it since for years now, and I love it. I actually love it. And
Good. Kombucha, it's definitely not everyone likes it, so that's good that you like it.
yeah, it's an acquired taste for sure.
Absolutely.
But I really love it, and I get this company, brand. This is not an advertisement. I'm not getting paid. I should probably.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
called Remedy. Remedy.
Ah,
They make this, and they make a sugarless variety, which is I get the ginger lemon, and it's
nice.
beautiful. It's wonderful, and I drink it all the time, and it definitely has. I think it make help my immune system. It really did.
Mhm. Good. Yeah. And ginger is also very, very good for your gut. So that makes sense why it's also good for your gut. Yeah. Good. Well, that's good, Jackie. I'm glad you did that.
Oh, thanks. Probably was just feeling really cool, like a
Yeah.
teenager. Um, um, I heard I somehow like repeat this myth, or maybe I read about it, that antibiotics are can be found in soil and in trees and in the Amazon and like in just so much nature. That's where essentially they come from. And then, in the process of processing those natural ingredients, they become so far from the source. And I've just, in my understanding, like I've only looked at antibiotics as kind of like stripping us away of our natural things,
Yeah.
but we need them at times to deal with
Yeah.
infection.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely every time I've had to take an antibiotic, it's always got a side effect some kind. With it's usually the main one was the intestinal, the lower the lower part of your digestion, and they always told me that's because the antibiotics kill your good bacteria while they're killing the bad stuff.
They just kill everything.
Yeah, it just wipes it out. And that makes me think, the stuff that they're finding in the Amazon, the natural sources of these things, when the pharmaceutical people get a hold of it and their R&D, they isolate those components and then they make them supercharged.
Mm,
So that becomes very unnatural to the body.
mhm.
It may get like results quicker, but is that always the best thing? Maybe,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, when you're dealing with something like sepsis or something that could kill you
Yeah.
really quickly if you don't deal with it, then I suppose you take out the big guns. But but I think that they're being overused. And I have to say personally, I actually had that happen in my life when I had gone into the doctor and he said, "Oh, you just look, it's like you have a cold this year. I'm not going to give you antibiotics because I don't want to give you those all the time because you get immune to them." And he was a good doctor. So I mean, I've had that experience. So I do know that it's a strong antibiotics are strong and somewhat manufactured. I mean, we don't I don't know if I trust that so much. Um, you know, I can name other instances like this things that are like fentanyl that's
Hmm.
killing people all the time. It's sort of
Yeah.
heroin. It's doing something that an opiate does sort of naturally. And if you ate real opiate from the natural nature, it would not have such a drastic effect on you. It might help your pain. I mean, they used to use it in pain remedies many, many hundreds of years ago. And then as soon as they got a hold of it and started refining it, then they produced things like heroin, which can kill you. You can
Hmm.
overdose so easily from it. And then fentanyl, which is another step further now. And I heard one of our podcast guests was saying that out in the streets now, the people that are into drugs and stuff, they don't even get the fun part of heroin, which is you feel good for a little bit and then you got to worry. But with fentanyl, you just push you out. It's like you don't even get that warm, fuzzy feeling that they get from the opiate when they're using them. So I mean, that's interesting, I thought, because it's another example of like refined sugar. For example, if you eat a sugar cane, it's not going to be as bad as eating some really refined sugar. That stuff goes in your body and ooh, talk about glucose readings.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Absolutely. Yeah.
So I
Mm.
mean, like a friend of mine, my cousin, who's really like a brother to me, also a type 1 diabetic. And I'm
Uh,
on type 2. I'm on insulin after taking steroids for a long time
hmm.
during my days of leukemia.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you though that he taught me a lot. I got a book called about book he recommended, and there's ways to enjoy sweet things without killing your sugar readings. There's plenty of ways. Applesauce. He uses applesauce to sweeten his yogurt.
Yeah.
And I've been trying that lately, and I really like it. It's a good dessert.
Good. That's,
Got
yeah,
a,
I've actually not
got
tried that.
yeah, and his little sneaky trick is he takes some dark chocolate and shaves a little bit in there, so it's like chocolate chip almost,
Yeah.
mixed with the yogurt and the applesauce. And I got to tell you, it's my favorite
Pretty good.
dessert.
Wow, that actually sounds very good. Yeah.
It is good. It is really
I love
good.
that. Dark chocolate's very good for you too. It's full of antioxidants as well. So that's
That's what he
good.
told. I'm told.
Yes.
I
It's
believe it.
delicious.
One of my favorites is dark chocolate. I do love it.
Good, good. I feel like that's also another required taste. People are either milk or dark. There's no in between.
But the milk, of course, is like a lot of high sugar.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah. Fortunately, that's my kryptonite, sadly, but
Well, who hasn't with Easter coming?
I
Who
know,
hasn't
I know
who
it's
hasn't had a
everywhere.
chocolate bunny?
Everywhere. Yeah, get yourself a giant one, like a 6 foot one. Why not?
Yeah, Jackie used to eat the ears right away. We knew it was Jackie.
I did too. That's so funny.
What other would you say? Tell us more about your journey now that you've got into helping a life coach. Really, it's what essentially it is.
Yeah.
Have you had some good experiences that have come into your experience from that?
Yeah, so I've not quite taken on any clients yet. I just graduated in November of this last November. And kind of got a little sidetracked because my dad unfortunately ended up passing away. So it was
Mhm.
very, yeah, there was a lot going on. So that was sidetracked a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm very, very grateful that it happened before he passed. He was very excited for me. And after a couple of months, I had just the fire lit underneath me again. And I was like, I want to get this started. So I started my social media account for it. I've started getting like, word of mouth out to people about it. Um, and yeah, I just actually got my photos taken for my brand, which was really exciting. My first time like getting a branding shoot done. And I've just really tried to, focus on who and what like my focus is for people. Like who do I want to help? And I think I'm kind of narrowed it down. I do believe I want to help, women that are between the ages of 18 to 40, and anyone really doesn't have to be in my area in Metro Detroit. It can be, virtual. So just really trying to find that select audience that I think I can really ultimately help. So it's been great. I've truly, I feel like as much as it's hard some days, I don't want to sit here and say, like, I see why it had to happen to me, why I had to go through it. I don't always have those days. I have days where I am very, very sad and I'm, resentful about it. But I have to lean into the why, which is not even just the why, but what can I do now? This happened. You can't change it. What can I do now? And if that is to help even just one person, that's all I can ask for. And I remember telling my boyfriend about that too when we were on our first date. I was telling him about all these things that happened to me, and he's just looking like shocked. And I'm like, but I have to ask myself, like, people always say, why did this happen to me? Why did it happen to me? I like to ask, why not me? Because there's no reason why somebody else should have had to have gone through this and not me. So,
It's that's one of those the things about out of the blue that I find so mystifying, and yet it's a phenomenon of vast proportions because something like this happens to you, and you've been able to say that, why not me? Because you're taking it and turning it into something not it's a real positive what you're doing. You're going to be reaching out to help other people. And like you say, if you help one person, it's worth everything. But you're going to, I got a feeling, Taylor, you're going to help more than one person.
thank you. I hope so. Thank you.
You've got the passion. I'm so sorry about your dad.
Thank you.
I lost my dad when I was 17, and
Okay.
it still bothers me, and I'm
Yeah.
a lot older than that.
Yeah.
But but you have to think. I'm so grateful for what I had when I had him.
Yeah.
And he blessed my life in many ways. But
Hmm.
I'm sure your dad too. Sounds like he
He
did.
did. Yeah. He was the person. I called him. Oh, the first night that I had all the symptoms, he was the first person I would call. Yeah, he's the person that also, when I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, I passed out when I was 7 years old. And I just remember waking up in my dad's arms and he was running me out to the car to take me to the ER. Um, so I miss him dearly. I loved my dad. He was my best friend. But I know that he's still here with me. He's still guiding me. And I still have that drive and that strength that he had, and I'm very grateful that I have that. So
Well, that's really beautiful. No one, that's about as good a story as you can have as far as dealing with all things, including the loss of your father, which is
yes.
devastating.
Yeah.
I have to say that part of the thing that my healing of beating cancer has all to do with my family and the love that it comes from that.
Hmm.
And I see like that. That's what I think. I can say is a kind of. I want to ask a question. What kind of thread do you think you see running through things that come out of the blue and their reaction to them. And it definitely, I don't want to answer it for you, but
Yeah.
what kind of thread do you see? What the continuity in that in your life comes from these things? I mean, you said your dad, you said
Hmm.
you got this purpose you're doing to help people.
Yeah.
I see a thread, but I want to hear what you think.
For me, like I said, I have ththose days where I'm so resentful and I have a lot of negativity brewing in me. Um, but truthfully, it has taught me profound joy. I have not felt this kind of joy. I never felt it prior. I took a lot for granted and I really did not appreciate all the things that I had in my life. And now I look at each moment, even as I'm a nanny, for example, I even just coloring with the kids that I nanny for, I really just sit there now and I'm like, this is amazing that I get paid to do this. Like, this is so cool that I get to be creative and hang out with little people that I get to just like help raise and teach. And I never had that perspective before. I never had the perspective of how lucky I am to have the health that I do, despite the other challenges that I have with it. Even as a type 1 diabetic, I grew up always thinking, why me? Like, no one else, I was the only one in my school that had type 1 diabetes. And I felt completely alone and really just like something was wrong with me. And then as I like went through this experience, it was really just like a full circle moment where I just thought, I'm so lucky that I get to experience this because I know that I'm not alone, but I'm just in where I'm at. I might be, but out there in the world, it's such a big world. There are people going through the exact same thing. And community and love and joy and support is what I've truly found the most in all of this.
Oh, well, I just had a big aha moment. And
Good.
I think your very first out of the blue experience was that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just the way you told us, just the way you narrated what you did, it's almost exactly the same thing as what you did dealing with Flagyl toxicity.
Yeah. Yeah.
You formed a sort of way navigation to go forward from when life gets lifey.
Yeah. That's
When
a good way of
something,
saying
you know,
it.
and when something comes out of the blue and your
Yeah.
whole, life seems to change fundamentally. You like you said, you felt, why me? I'm so different than everybody else. That's a fundamental change at any age.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you're 8 or 20 or
Yeah.
50 or 100.
Yeah.
That will change your view of life completely. Really, that's the essence of really what we want to hear from what I love to hear. I mean, I try not to, I try to go into these experiences with our interviews with just an open mind.
Yeah.
I don't try to get, intentionally, I want to script anything.
Of
So
course. Yeah.
when I heard you saying all that, I thought I couldn't have written it any better
Hmm. Well, good.
because
I'm glad to hear
you
that.
really came through something at your earliest age that how much younger could you be to have an out of the blue moment
Yeah.
and then have that really amazing turnaround that
Hmm.
were able to the key elements to me, appreciation level.
Yeah.
Your appreciation level goes up, and once your appreciation goes up, I said last week to another podcast, I said appreciation means making something, what a diamond appreciates, it becomes more valuable. When you appreciate the moment with your nanny, your child, that's making that moment more valuable. That's, and I really think that's what it's all about, making our life appreciation of
Absolutely.
everything, And I think you've done it, Taylor. I think you're doing it now. And I think,
Thank you.
yeah, I think that the takeaway for anybody that tunes in here, if yes, you should be aware of fragile toxicity. And if you're feeling any of those symptoms,
Yeah.
you really should talk to your doctor and tell them maybe you don't want that, you get off that stuff. And
Yeah.
then get in touch with Taylor and she'll walk you through it, about how to
Yes.
eat right and do stuff like that. And
Yes.
then
Yes.
maybe get on that group. Now, what's the name of that group again? We're going to put it
It's
out there.
metronidazole slash or in parentheses Flagyl toxicity support group.
Oh boy,
Yeah.
that's a
So
mouthful though.
I
Yeah.
know metronidazole is like the long name for, I don't know the correct term of saying that, but the long version of Flagyl. But if you type in Flagyl, Flagyl, that will pop up. Support group. It'll pop up.
So we got to make sure anybody out there experiencing any symptoms that come close to what you've heard today, check it
Yes.
out. It's
Please do.
even,
We will welcome you with open arms.
yes,
Sad arms, but we'll be there for you.
Okay, I
and
think I like have definitely taken that.
You
really?
probably have. I've actually I took it before as well, and I remember had it was 10 years prior, and even like in the midst of all the chaos, the very beginning, I called like my old doctor's office and was like, "Can you tell me? I know I had this back then. Can you tell me what I took?" And I remember had like I was crying and I couldn't explain why. And I called my mom and I was like, "I don't know why I'm crying, but I'm crying," and I couldn't stop, and it was metronidazole. Um, so that was 10 years prior. I'm not surprised. You probably have. It's given for tooth infections. I mean, so many different things. I can't even begin to explain.
Yeah,
Whoa.
I'm gonna look into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's also, I think it's the number one thing that they give for diverticulitis as well, which is crazy to me because you're already experiencing GI issues, severe, and they're going to give you something that's also going to cause you severe GI
Oh
issues.
my goodness. Oh, that's a big one.
That's
I definitely know anybody out there listening, you know who you are.
Yeah. Yep.
I probably know you too.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something I've heard from some people that have had GI issues or say diverticulitis.
hmm
I'm wondering now, because it definitely all the psychological parts of it making you depressed.
Yeah.
That's serious business.
It's really bad. I think that's more than anything, that's the side that I would say everybody had experience-wise besides the GI upset. It was severe anxiety. That's just like the telltale sign that it's not working for you. It's causing some issues. And this isn't just like your typical like, nervous biting your nail anxiety. This is you feel like you're going to die. You feel like this is absolutely terrible. And just nothing is like matters anymore. It was really, really bad.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, that is so. I was gonna ask you, what do you would you say is the most common red flag? And I think you just said it. I mean, that pretty much is it.
Yeah. I think a lot of people because the thing is like the doctors, the one thing that they tell people not to do on metronidazole, if they do tell you, they'll say don't drink on it. They say don't have alcohol, blah blah blah. And a lot of people still will. I have some friends that even did, and I'm just like, please don't do it. If not for yourself, do it for me. But and they say like you'll just get really bad like GI upset or whatever, you'll have a bad reaction. But if you have any sort of course the neuropathy, that's the biggest red flag I would say because
Oh, okay.
that is like the number one thing that unfortunately in the group people a lot of the times don't see relief from with time. Some people do. I unfortunately am somebody that did not. I still have it on and off 2.5 years in. But the anxiety, the fatigue, the migraines, the insomnia, I'd say those four are the most common that I saw in there.
And I just noticed that you said some of your friends you were doing. So it's that commonly prescribed then.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times that I've gone to doctors who know that I list this now as an allergy and they still try to give it to me.
Wow. And
Yeah.
metronidazole, how did you say that? Because that sounds like I could remember that.
I
Metronidazole?
metronidazole, yes.
Oh, that's easy. Metronidazole.
Yep.
Yeah, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to look at my medical record. I
Yeah.
may have heard that one in my history.
Yeah, it's extremely commonly prescribed, and it's funny too because one of my previous nanny families, the dad, he was a doctor, and I had very insightful conversations with him. He didn't deny any of it. I was very, very fortunate, like I said, to have had the doctors that I did because they didn't deny my experience. At least not when I first had it. I definitely had some along the ways who said it was probably anxiety, but we just never talked to them again. um, but that's the biggest thing is that doctors, it's so commonly heard of, it's so commonly prescribed. Not everybody has reactions like this, but it's happening and it's happening what seems to be at a greater scale. And not to mention my cats, I actually just took one in for some GI upset and they wanted to prescribe it to my cat that was
Oh,
only
dear
7 months
God.
old.
Oh, dear God.
Oh my goodness.
That is
Yeah.
bizarre, right? I
Okay.
mean,
Yep.
Yeah, so then this seems like we need to watch out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
yeah, so that's going to be probably one of the main takeaways too, is that you need to, I mean, when you started talking about this, it didn't sound as far reaching, but now I'm
Yeah.
thinking, wait a minute,
Yeah.
this is something that's much more far reaching.
It's everywhere. Yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Yeah.
So we gotta get people to go to your support, that's website, the support group, I mean, on Facebook. And I guess they could talk to their doctors and say, this stuff is not making me feel funny. I don't want it.
Yeah.
And at least start that. And
Yeah.
you got to advocate for yourself.
Yes.
And then if you're hearing any of these symptoms that Taylor is sharing with us, and you're on any kind of antibiotic, check the name.
Hmm.
Make sure it isn't metronidazole
Or Flagyl, yes, whatever it says on
or
there. Yeah.
Flagyl, whatever it may say on the label.
Yeah.
So is Flagyl like one of the things they usually write in the label of it, or is it?
I think they just write metronidazole.
That's what
Yeah,
I
I think,
think. Yeah.
yeah, I think so. I'm not sure. Flagyl might just be what's on like the pamphlet, if they give you a pamphlet ever, which they don't. That's the thing. It's not like it's like a birth control pack. It's like it's a antibiotic they just give you in a little bottle. So yeah, I would say it's probably metronidazole written on there.
Yep. Okay. So take that into consideration, people out there, if you're listening. I hope you're listening and
Yes.
listening with your ears peeled, because
Hmm.
it's your welfare that what
Yep.
this is all about. Where we care about you.
Yeah.
We don't want anyone to have to go through that. And
Yeah.
there's people like Taylor out here who are out here out of the blue, who have been there and back. And thankfully, she had you did have the tools to turn it into a positive. And I think
Yeah.
that's a wonderful example right there. So yeah, that's a high point of this episode, is that, you really came through to a point where you're saying, yeah, up your appreciation,
Yeah.
all those things. I mean, say it one more time. What did you say came out of it all?
The immense amount of joy that's the biggest thing. And there's actually quite a few people, health coaches, and doctors that say joy is truly like one of the biggest ways to heal, is focusing on joy. And I didn't have this immense amount of joy prior. I took a lot of things for granted. The gratitude that I have now for what I do have and what I've been through, even the bad, is not something I experienced prior. So who I am now, I'm not who I was then. And I'm very grateful for that, because as much as I have love for that version of me, she wasn't very self-aware. She wasn't taking care of herself the way that she should have, even though she thought she was. But if this had to be a wake-up call for me, as intense as it was, I'll look at it as that. And I think just being appreciative that I went through this so that I can now help other people.
Well, I cannot think of a better place to end our show today. Joy is definitely so powerful. I am
Yeah.
so much on that same wavelength. I've
Yeah.
written dreams about joy. Joy is the most
Uh-huh.
powerful thing on earth that we can
Mhm.
experience, and it is definitely a healer.
Absolutely.
And thank you so very much, Taylor, for your sharing your incredible and wonderful, terrifying but
Yes.
true story. And I think it's going to do a lot of good. And I thank you so much for being here with us, Taylor. We really, really, really appreciate you. And we
Thank you so
really,
much. I
yes,
appreciate you guys in this podcast. The topic of this is absolutely amazing. So I'm so grateful that you've created this.
thank you very much, and welcome to the Out of the Blue family, Taylor.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be here. So
It's a
thank you.
forever thing.
Oh,
Families
I'm good.
forever.
Yeah, that's good with
All right.
me.
All right. See you
Yeah.
later.
See ya. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Out of the Blue, the podcast, hosted by me, Vernon West, co-hosted by Jacqueline West, edited by Joe Gallo, music and logo by Vernon West III. Have an Out of the Blue story of your own you'd like to share? Reach us at info@outoftheblue-thepodcast.org. Subscribe to Out of the Blue on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and on our website, outoftheblue-thepodcast.org. You can also check us out on Patreon for exclusive content.